Oh, we're not live. Oh, now we're live.
All right, we're live. All right, everybody. Welcome to the Kill or Be Killed podcast, the most unlistened to podcast in the interwebs. So, we're just talking about, of course, hormone replacement therapy. And I'm going to start, I'm 56. I'm going to start looking at that.
I'm 39 and I'm
And
telling everybody out there, get it checked. It's worth it.
again, like I've never, but it's like the shit you don't realize, what you're missing, especially like, I work out every day. Yo, Clayton, welcome, buddy. Good to have you. So, I'm, as like I said, it's like I'm doing this, but I'm fighting an uphill battle. And like I'll do where supplements go, I just started messing around with peptides, 157. I love creatine. That's like my go-to. I really don't take vitamins. I don't. I probably should take vitamin D, but I'm outside a lot. So I'm constantly like running or walking, and then I work out. My barn is outside. My workout is my gym is outside. So I'm in the elements. Um, I don't know, but again, I just think like it's funny because I've got like as your oldest son is how old, Jay?
Mine?
Yeah, how old?
Oh, I have three
Yeah.
girls.
Oh, girls. I thought you had
Yeah.
sons.
No, I have three girls.
Why didn't I? Because we talk about jujitsu. I'm like,
Yeah, no,
shit.
my girls do jujitsu.
Oh my God. That's awesome, by the way. Because for some reason I thought you had boys. We never even talked about it. Holy shit.
No, I mean, it's not one of those things I like to share around so much, because there's a bunch of weird
Why? I get it. Yeah, I get it.
But yeah, no, I have three
Oh
girls.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, God bless you. I've got one. It's like, all right. So so I've got a son and he's 19 and he works out a lot and he's like freaking shredded. And and I'm like, yeah, I remember, like being able to like I think he's like he's getting okay, so he's shredding for spring break, right? But he's like 173 pounds. He just put up 315 on the bench.
Nice.
And he's running like he'll like do 12-minute mile. He'll do 12-mile run and run like 8 20-minute miles. So I mean, dude, he's like, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, son of a bitch. Yeah, Clayton. Bet you never get to use the bathroom. Yeah, he's got his own bathroom because they don't want anything to do with that. I'm sure of it. But yeah, man. I said like you've got a greater chance of somebody, taking care of you when you're old. I don't think my my son may, but then he may take care of me. So
That's right.
So yeah.
I told my dad, my dad was a Marine, and I told him when he gets too old, I'm putting him in a Navy VA home.
That's the best insult for a Marine.
He's like, you better
tell
not.
them.
I'm like, you won't be able to stop me at that point.
Is to tell them that they're in the Navy. I mean, people are just inside because my dad was a Marine. My two of my uncles were Marines. One was in Chosin. I'm like devil dogs through and through. And the funniest thing is like, hey, who signed your paycheck? Department of the Navy, baby. Hey, Eric, thanks for jumping on, brother. Thank you. So, before we get into it, George is too much of a coward to be on here. Actually, his dad they've got massive snowstorm and they got to help his dad out. But of course, we're going to talk about USA versus Canada.
I mean, this is definitely the Josh and Damian show now, right?
Yeah, of course. If I had George, right? What are you doing? So
and where's all those other instructors? So for everyone who doesn't know, I have a cold, which is my voice sounds freaking ridiculous. I know. Where's all the other instructors at? Come on, guys.
Right? I'm like, they're always welcome. We posted a link for them to come on. I know they're, guys are busy, whatever. I mean, yeah, come on. So I don't know if you heard this, But
I heard a little bit, and then I read the article.
yeah. So what happened was, now this is why I've been like pushing myself to, because I didn't like grow up playing hockey, but I'm falling in love with the sport more and more every day. The reason is, well, first you go on, I'm like, they're not telling me to like end racism. They're not telling me like, cancer, or, they're not reminding me of what a shitty human being I am every 2 seconds when I look at the field or what they're wearing. These guys just go out and play hockey, man. I'm still trying to figure out what icing is. But so for those of you that don't know, or maybe, have, you know, don't look at any media like Josh. So apparently, like there's a Four Nations games. It's kind of like the All-Star games for these, for NHL. So this is like, Pro Bowl shit, NBA All-Star weekend. This is supposed to be kind of like a friendly kind of, exchange and game. So they're in Canada and they play the Canadian anthem, and then they play the national anthem, and the crowd just starts booing the American national anthem.
Whatever.
Right? Not to these maniacs. 3 fights in the first 9 seconds of the game. Hey, Red Hawk, thanks for joining us, brother. So, three fights, first 9 seconds. And of course, we go up to win like, I think we won like 4-1 or something like that. 3-1, yeah. So here's the, here's one.
John Cooper, look out. We're going to drop the gloves right away. Matthew Tkachuk and Brandon Hagel right off the hop. The tone's been set. Has it ever? You talk about a rivalry, Tampa Bay.
Okay.
So the funny thing is, if you read that article, it talks about how the guy who started it, Taychuk or whatever his name is.
Yeah.
It talks about how as they were coming up to the drop-off, he goes up to Hagel and he goes, "Hey, you want to start this fight gloves? You want to start this match gloves off?"
right.
And Hagel's like, "Okay."
Yeah, dude. Right. I mean,
he's like, let's get the crowd going, right?
Yeah, it's freaking awesome. It's awesome. I mean, and then this is like here's the next one.
Right before the first Tkachuk fight, this was set up. Here you go.
Now his brother goes.
Yeah,
that's what happens, right?
So then the announcer goes, before the first one, this one was already set up, right? And so like,
right.
Both of the brothers were like, man, let's just get this going,
Right.
But then after the third fight, I don't think there were any more fights.
Yeah, no, there weren't. No, there.
So it just goes to show that it was just for show.
Of course. I mean, look, we all realize that. I mean, if you don't realize, how difficult it is to fight like this. It's impossible. Like you can't set your feet. No. You really gotta the problem is when the guy, is either someone sedentary, where it's like he hits his knees or he hits the ground, then they jump on it and it's over. But you're on your feet, you can absorb shots, you can't plant, you can't twist your hip. It's like all arm shit. Mm-hmm. The worst thing is you're punching a guy in the helmet in the head.
Yeah.
So these guys are breaking their hands. Make no mistake, that happens all the time.
Yeah.
You're thinking about it, you're hitting the guy, you're punching the guy's skull. I'm like, it's insane. And there you go, and they break it up.
Yeah.
And then you're looking at, again, it was great. It was great theater. Everybody's fired up.
Yeah, I mean, if you're paying attention, like it's like they're having fun, right? They're not. Nobody's actually trying to hurt the other person. You know what I mean?
No,
Like, not to say that getting hit didn't hurt, but they're not trying to like if you watch one of the hockey fights when they're actually mad, it's a totally different animal.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I mean, look, it's like schoolyard playing. It's like beating up your brother. And these guys were having fun and they got everybody into it. And it's an easy way to, get the crowd, get the crowd rolling, get the crowd into it. It's not like, again, it's like fight separate from the game. But again, to your point, like these guys, it's, it was, a lot of it was premeditated. It was like theater. And,
but with that being said, they're still throwing blows. Somebody could still get hurt.
So,
and when you look at it like that in comparison to like like the NFL Pro Bowl or anything like that, where they're literally just like dancing around each other because nobody wants to risk a season,
Well, now the Pro Bowl is flag football and a bunch of other shit.
Oh, is it? I haven't even seen that.
Yeah, it's because the games became so unwatchable that you couldn't. It was stupid, and now you've got guys who are. But again, this is the this is why the NHL is so. It's great, right? It's like because again, you've got the NBA, which I mean, baseball still goes, but the guys aren't really. Rarely get a guy like thrown at a guy or making a statement. But baseball can go hard because it's a non-contact sport. Basketball, they always got to do some shit because no one plays defense, right? And then football, I get it. These guys are like multi millionaires, and they're gonna get hurt in a game that kind of means nothing. So it's really tricky, and they're trying to make it interesting, and they're playing flag football, which is fun, but it's not going to be, it's not going to be anything more than what it is, to be honest. So, I don't know. I said, I just enjoy, the hockey culture. I think these guys are, they're not, they're not as recognizable. It's a blue collar sport, right? And these guys, are not as recognizable as some guys in the NFL. But really, the only guys in the NFL that get recognized are like skill players.
Yeah.
It's rare that you can't help but see when you see like a lineman from the NFL, you're like, what the hell is that? Because that's not a human. Same thing with a basketball player. Basketball players, I'm like, these are like freaks of nature. To me, like as far as athletes go, I think basketball players have to be the most exceptional. The reason is one, they play offense and defense, right? They're supposed to. They all have to be able to handle the ball and shoot, and they're all of a certain size, and if you're not that big, you've got to be even more of a maniac, right?
Yeah.
Like, hockey, very similar, only that you don't have necessarily a height component to it, which makes the humans on the court just a little bit more exceptional. Well, hockey's got a lot of the same shit. Soccer's got a lot of the same shit, but you can be, an average height person and play these sports. Again, these are all freaks of nature. These are all, we're just kind of splitting hairs here. NFL, you get more specialized guys. It's like who's a lineman, who's a long snapper, who's a punter, who's a kicker, who's a receiver. It's not like, again, everybody's got to kind of do, football, soccer. No, not necessarily soccer because you got offense and defense, but like, basketball, hockey, you've got more offense and defense guys. But like basketball, everyone's offense, everyone's defense.
You're constantly switching and rotating like around the whole court, right?
Right. Mm-hmm. So like when you're looking at, thanks, Red Hawk. Yeah. So when you're looking at like the quintessential athlete and the quintessential freak, definitely basketball takes it. Even though I sucked at basketball, that's why I wrestled. It was brutal. I knew second grade. We had a kid and I'm gonna just say his name, Sid Smith. He wound up playing for Yale. To me, he was a year older than me. He looked like Dr. J, right? I mean, we're like, it's the 70s. Sid's got the fro, he's got the headband, and he was freaking awesome, dude. He played Ivy League. He's awesome. I was on his team. I think I scored 2 points the entire season. And I was in second grade. I remember his sister used to keep the books. And I remember like going over the one time I scored, I kept asking her what the score was. Like I remember, man, I was like 7 years old. And then that next year, my cousin, he went out for wrestling, and then we all wound up wrestling. I'm like, yeah, this makes more sense to my body. Because my son was really good at basketball. And so I tried to get better at it as an adult. Like, I'm in my 30s and 40s, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to go out there and try to get better at this sport to push my son. Not what I spent hours like shooting, fucking awful. I didn't get no improvement. I swear to God, I got like zero improvement after like a month of like, hours of like shooting and like trying to get some handles and stuff like that. So it was funny. When he was in 7th grade, he started to beat me. And I would listen, guys, I'm going to tell you, especially if you have like, I'm not a let you beat me dad.
Right?
I'm like, no, you're not helping them. No, so I don't care if it's a board game, cards, whatever, man. I'm going in. I'm going to throttle you. But I'm going to tell you as a parent, there's no better moment when your child beats you at something, and it's weird because you think, I would imagine some assholes would be pissed. I'm like, at least right here, I'm leaving someone on the planet that is a step above what I am, right? And you're like, so the day he like crossed me up and just, he starts scoring at will, and I just start laughing. And he's like, why aren't you mad? Because make no mistake, I talked more shit to my son when we played than you could ever imagine. Like, I mean, dude, I used to call him, Clocky, because, broken clock is right twice a day. When he got it would excuse me, destroy him so much where Angela would come out and be like, what are you doing? I'm like, he doesn't have an older brother. I'm like, I had an older brother. My older brother and his friends beat my ass on a regular basis. He's 6 years older than me, kicked my fucking ass. Like, it was like, I remember my brother used to sit in my dad's recliner, and it was like, okay, we had like the family room with the TV, and then the recliner, the door went into the kitchen, or I could go through the front hallway, go around the dining room, and come in through the kitchen that way. I used to go by there. He used to punch me. So literally for years, I would just like go and I'd walk around the entire, hallway, dining room, kitchen, right? Until one day I'm like, fuck this guy. And I just fucking went in and we fought at that. And he could have killed me. I mean, he's 6 years older than me. I'm a child, right? He's like in like middle school. I'm like, but I'm like, fuck you. We're fighting. And finally, it just got to the point where he's like, okay, I just don't want to have to fight this little fucker.
It's not worth it. It's not fun anymore, right?
It's not fun anymore, man. It's like one thing when you would hit me and I go, but I'm like, God damn it. And I think that's what, and that's kind of like on a scarier level because there's familiarity with a sibling. But like, that's where the bullying thing, comes in where you're like, okay. I mean, dude, I remember, being, bullied. I mean, everybody, at least our generations had it, where it wasn't like you told the teacher, you told the teacher, you're like, you're getting, you're like, what the hell's wrong with Ross? I mean, what's that all about? I remember like having to, you know, be like, okay, I'm gonna have to deal with this dude. And trust me, I was already wrestling by this time, and it was like I had the fucking magic key. No one wrestled. I was the only kid in my grammar school that wrestled. And it was like nobody else was doing anything else. And these kids would come in and I'd just be like double leg takedown, ground and pound, kid cries. Like I'm like in like fourth grade beating up like sixth graders, right? I'm like, but I still every time I got scared of shit. It was like every time. It wasn't like I had this like confidence to be like, yeah, dude, I'm fucking like, 10-0. Like, right? I'm like every fucking it's like every fucking time. I remember this one kid, I'll leave his name out, but he wound up he was a year older than me, had a reputation. And my friend who's in my grade, a smaller dude, we're like getting ready for baseball practice, and this kid just kind of showed up, like Kelly Lee, not on a motorcycle, like on a Schwinn, and started it with my buddy, and I'm like, dude, I confronted him, and yeah, dude, I remember I just took him down and started punching his face till he cried, and then I stopped, and that's how kids like kind of figure shit out. He didn't get hurt, I didn't get hurt. He was embarrassed and he knew not to mess with him. But like the next day at school, like he's trying to save face. And I just like decimated him. But I still remember being scared, till the point like nothing happened. Like he threw a kickball at me and I'm like, okay, let's go. And then we're on school grounds and it was before school, so nothing was going to happen. And that was the end of it. But it's like, you kind of like find your own, level. And I think, we've definitely, there has to be, it can't be the Wild West, but there's got to be some element of, allowing people to explore physical, children to explore physical conflict. That's why it's even like, we used to have like, we didn't have boxing, but we had like wrestling and judo. And it was funny because it was like the gym teachers would teach wrestling. And I was like, already like, I'm like, what are you teaching? I don't even know. Like it was like rudimentary, and the judo was like, okay, Osonogari. I'm like, all right, nobody, So, but again, you had some kind of, and we had like matches, and people were, kids were understanding what it was like to, be uncomfortable and somebody laying on you and rolling around and force against force, and none of that all that stopped, all of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now it's like if you don't play a sport, or put your kids in, jujitsu, something like that, I mean, you've got to, it's important to create that, and it's important that they, they get that feeling.
Yeah.
I mean, especially like, everyone, doesn't matter, boy, girl, it's like, you got to know what it's like to feel the weight of somebody on you, or, feeling somebody that wants to like, impose their will on you physically.
Yeah.
And it's been like, kind of ripped out. And for a while, I mean, this is why it's like, when I tell people, they're like, what, when we grew up, we're like, we were taught, the mantra was like, violence never solves anything. You still hear it, and I always say like, well, it stops a lot of shit, right? You're like, there's no, it's like violence, never resort to violence. I'm like, that's not true.
No, it shouldn't be your first go-to.
Of course not, right?
Right.
I'm like, you can't be like, hair trigger,
Yeah.
fucking walking around. But, understand it's out there, and there's people who know how to leverage it and exploit it that will take advantage of you. And a good street fighter, somebody who's from the street, knows they go first,
Mm-hmm.
and they get into you. And they're like, and because by the time you're figuring out, oh, why are you doing this to me? It's freaking over.
Yeah.
And and I've seen this with like elite level fighters and martial artists, that are out, and they're like, well, why? There's no why. I'm like, this guy. I'm like, you always talk about it. You're imposing your values and thoughts and your morality on this person, and this is a completely different person. See it all the time, and
Yeah.
problem is it comes in with policy. When guys are everything from the police department from you know you know use of force policy, and what techniques we're going to use and how we're going to do this, and then getting into a court of law in front of people who don't understand the nature of violence.
Yeah, and then
And
they're
what
going to
this
determine reasonable force, right?
yeah, and this person is like, look, I go, this person, this aggressor is doing something that no one in this jury or courtroom would consider, and that's hurting another human being. So, automatically they're trying to, we have this need to kind of make sense of shit,
Yeah.
right? So, we're looking at this. Well, why would somebody do this? Why is that? Not like that's a rabid dog, or they're broken and they've got, whatever wrong with them, either, from how they were brought up and or what their psychological makeup is, who knows? But they're doing things you never would imagine, possible. So, and then we try to inject, some type of morality on it. And it's freaking crazy. But we get into this thing, and this is why, the kid, the Marine in the subway who chokes out the dude, winds up having to defend his life in court for months and months. But the guy who clips the freaking CEO of the healthcare, USA Healthcare, gets, put on a pedestal.
Yeah.
I'm like,
yeah. I think this segues good into the Zizan group.
Yes, I think you are correct. So this is I mean, it's not awesome because people got killed. But there's a Zizian, it's a vegan trans cult. They shot a border patrol agent. They also killed another couple in there's also a murder in Pennsylvania and another one in North Carolina.
And California.
Yeah. So this border patrol, U.S. Border Patrol near the Canadian border appears to be linked to a radical leftist trans militant cult of math geniuses.
Yeah, math and computer geniuses. Yeah.
Again, it's like all these violent. It's like for a group that probably would consider themselves non-violent, they're very good at being violent.
I don't know. I think at this point they're all about violence. Like if you read through that whole article, I mean, they're talking about radical measures, right? Doing extreme.
Right.
And I mean, we're talking about a group that lives out of box trucks. Like, that's weird.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's funny. I mean, or it's not funny, or this is the reality. When you're, it's all leading to violence. And when they talk about, they point fingers at fascism, at, hate mongering and all sorts of. Meanwhile, these are the groups that are killing people, literally. You've got, the last like, I don't know, active, the last school shooters, over the high profile ones over the last like few years. And it's tough because guys, when people talk about active shooters, I'm like, it gets really, what an active shooter is. I mean, they'll define it as somebody who's fired, a shooting involving a group with like 4 or more people, not 4 or more victims. So if you want to, let's say someone has a beef with another specific individual and they fire a weapon at them if there's other people around them, they're going to consider that an active shooter. So a lot of these numbers are inflated. So let's look at the last like few school shootings over the let's say last year. I mean, a lot of them are coming from this disenfranchised, frustrated community. And it's really, we're talking about mental illness here, and no one's really addressing it. The problem is with, this group is you've got obviously intelligent people who are probably, you know, um, there's there's something unstable about them, and they feel outcast. I mean, if you're joining a group, I mean, look, we all have this tribal mentality, right? So we all join groups, churches, things like that. I mean, there's something natural about it, and that's what helps us survive, right? I'm like, a community working together, it's built into us. But that can be twisted and perverted, and that's how you get like these crazy cults. And look, man, what is a cult compared to a church? Or I think it would be one that's I think it's all about freedom to come and go, right? I'm like, I guess that would be it. I'm like, look, you've got everyone's got traditions, everyone's got rituals, but if you want to leave, it's like, okay, kind of, you can go, kind of shit. You may not be as close with the people that you left. I mean, that's just like everything else, because you're going to get a natural reaction of people like, if you don't want to be with us, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with us? Kind of thing. So there's that, but again, I don't know what would be the what would be the difference other than being captive and being cut off. I don't know. It's a tricky area. The yeah, so these are like this is the founder, Jax's Lesota. I guess this was a guy who's now girl-ish. Transgender group posted about transhumanism and other topics. Some followers say Lesota is dead, but it seems to be a plot to avoid authorities. Here's the name, Andrea Phillips. Okay. Really not good-looking people. That's one of the victims. I'm like,
yeah, that dude's that's the dude from California, and they attacked him with a sword. It's pretty nuts.
What? Wow. Yeah. Crap.
Yeah, like stabbed him in the eye and like cut him all up and stuff, and then he pulled his gun on him. California, believe it or not, pulled his gun on him. Shot and killed one, and then wounded another and scared him off. Lived, and then another guy from the group, as like a week out from his trial to perform testimony, that dude there snuck up on him on his ranch and slit his throat, so he couldn't
Holy
testify.
Shit!
Yeah, because he's the only witness in the case.
Yeah. So I mean, look, man. To not think that there's mental illness attached to this is, and the problem with what we've created and what Trump has. Okay, he signed an executive order, so it's over. But seriously, if I came to you and I said, Josh, I think I'm Chinese. Or definitely Japanese, because I'm very much into the culture. I mean, I identify with it. I feel it. Yeah, love sushi. I know how to count. I know how to say specific techniques. I spent a lot of my life doing judo. I'm Japanese. You'd be like, you're out of your fucking mind.
I'd be like, I don't know, get a DNA test, dude.
You're right. And then go have a hard conversation with my mother. Like, yeah, and
But
it's like no,
that brings up a great point though, right? My response would be go get a DNA test, right? So if someone comes to me and they're like, "Hey, I think I'm a girl," but they're a guy, like, I don't know, get a DNA test.
right. You know what the answer is going to be, and like, and this is what I was like trying to like, I heard a great thought, and it was Jordan Peterson, and he's like, look, he goes, confusing gender with traits, right? Like, if I like, if I like flower arranging, okay, that would be kind of a more feminine trait. It doesn't mean I'm a woman.
No,
right? Not. So yeah, I'm like, okay, and like, and so with when I'm talking to let's just say my daughter, and we can't talk about this stuff because and listen, I pick my own fights. God love her. She's in a place where she should actually be at this for what she does and for how old she is. She should think a certain way. So to me, it's like not to prove a point. It's just not worth it, But I remember having a conversation with her. I'm like, so, she's explaining, gender fluidity. And I'm like, so when do you feel like you're a woman? What does that feel like? When do you feel like you're a man? What does that feel like? Is it sexual? Is it, and they don't have an answer for it. And the reality is you can't have an answer for it. No. Right? Because, and that's what, and to me, it destabilizes, their, if you don't know, if you're not sure what gender you are, excuse me, how are you going to make any other decision?
Yeah, I mean, like gender dysphoria is a real, like, actual problem, like it's a disease or not like a psychological issue. You know what I mean? Like, yes, where like you feel like you're in the wrong body, and you know what? I couldn't imagine what that feels like, But like gender fluidity, and like you're talking about like the assigning of roles, right? It's like what defines a woman, what defines a man, what defines whatever.
Right.
You're talking about traits instead of just being like, I'm a complex human being and I like to, I like musicals. I love going to play shows and stuff like that. Boy, that doesn't make me gay,
Kind of. Yeah, a little bit.
You know what I mean?
So yeah, right. Of course.
But it's like just because I like to watch people sing and dance doesn't mean I'm gay. Doesn't mean I'm a woman.
Yeah.
I just like to watch people sing and dance.
Right.
But then it's like, but then I also love guns. And I also like to watch things explode. That doesn't also make me like a super ultra aggressive male either.
Right. I mean, like to your point, we're a complex,
complex, right?
Yeah. So to sit there and automatically flip flop, go back and forth, it's like, dude, I mean, and then we're confused. Gender is gender. We're either male or female, period. Then there's sexuality, and then there's traits, right? So, to sit there and be like, the fact is, and this is what, and this is why, the left got lost with all of this shit is because there was no common sense, especially when it came to women's rights and women's sports. I mean, you're looking at, where they're like literally looking at you like so a man can say he's a woman and automatically compete against women in
which is crazy. And you never saw it going the other way because they could never compete.
They get killed. Yes. And and on top of that, like, the dude who won the NCAA swimming, he was still fully intact and dating a girl like a week later.
Yeah.
And he's in the locker room with the girls. And fuck you, University of Pennsylvania, Ivy League shit. That you were like, they were like the girls, like the shit they were telling the girls about. If you need to go to sensitivity training, as a parent, you couldn't be like, I don't want a guy showering with my daughter.
Yeah. And you hear about the Planet Fitness one? Did you hear that one?
Remind me.
So this 12-year-old girl got super uncomfortable because there was some dude in the girls' locker room like shaving and stuff. And
Right.
she's at Planet Fitness and like trying to get changed and stuff. And this lady was like, an older lady was there. She was like, this is not right. And so she went like, basically, made sure the girl was safe and everything. And then went to Planet Fitness and was like, this is not right. Like, you can't have this guy in here when there's like, women and especially girls, and
Right.
they banned her from Planet Fitness. That was their response.
Right. So I saw something like that at a spa too. It was a Korean spa. Um, but yeah, I mean, that's your reaction to that.
Yeah.
And it's like you're not even thinking of the welfare of the child
No.
or the
they don't
women.
care.
And it's not about women's rights anymore. And that was the other, and that's the other thing. You're like, it immediately killed the women's rights movement.
Yeah.
Because now it's like, well, we're supposed to be, it was like gay, lesbian, women's rights were kind of like all in this bucket. And then the trans thing, where it wasn't even like post-op trans, years of hormone trans, before, like, up until, I mean, when we were growing up, I mean, to get like a sex change operation was such a fucking huge deal.
It still is. Most of them don't.
Yeah, I'm like, you've got to like, go, but even to go through the process, you had to go through like a lot of therapy. There was a lot of that going into it. And, now it was like, dude, I'm like, when they're talking about it, if you watch Matt Walsh's What is a Woman? It is disturbing when you're looking at, these doctors that are like talking about hormone blockers, like, oh, you just put them on it, and then when they come off, it's just like a button, and they go through puberty. That's not true at all.
Yeah.
Like, you have a certain window to go through puberty, and then after that, it's done. So when you're going to be sterile. You're gonna, your bone density is gonna be fucked up. And that's where like suicides happen and things. I mean, the high suicide, and they made it seem like, oh, if we don't do this, our kids will kill themselves. And of course, it's like you position this, cause and effect, where you're normally looking at kids who are like, okay, this is someone who's clearly struggling with something. They need to talk to somebody. They need to take some time and go through this period in their life. And then they can come out of it. And then when they're older, make a, educated decision about what they want to do. It's like, I talk to like my gay friends, and I'm like, dude, if you grew up now, right, and you were like, look, if you're gay, I think you're gay. So you're growing up, and you're like, I don't like the things that these guys are liking. Who's going to turn around and tell you, oh no, dude, that means you're actually a woman?
Right.
So now I'm like, and I know all these dudes like being a guy, they just like being gay. And yeah, I'm like, that would be gone. And so if that was taken from them, now what? Right.
Yeah.
I'm like, so, you've got it starts with like, you've got well-meaning people trying to save people. And then you've got, a money opportunity. And then you've got, an ideology opportunity. So it all kind of comes into this, one mess. And then, okay, yeah, we don't care about, we're just going to, then it just, it starts snowballing. And, finally now people are like, no, you're taking the parents' decision out of a major life choice for my kid. I'm like, holy crap, man.
Yeah.
I mean, we're lucky with our guys to not kind of really have to deal with that in a community that really didn't have to do, that wasn't dealing with it. I don't know what's happening, for the last like 10 years at their grammar school. But, if this were the case, I'm like, holy crap, man. I'd be looking to move to a place where it's just not an issue, where I could raise my kids, you know, like, where it's just a little bit more simpler. And to be clear, I don't want, for a grammar school kid, I'm like, they should know anything about sex. I don't give a straight sex, gay sex, nothing. Don't. I want, when we get into when we start hitting puberty, we got the school nurse came in and was like, "Hey, this is how babies are born." And I was like, "Okay, yeah, we're goofy." I remember kind of, you know, you know, laughing at shit, but still, it was like, "Hey, if you put this in there, she is a baby." I'm like, "Oh, okay. All right, maybe we do other stuff." But I was like, yeah, that's it. That was it. It wasn't like I didn't learn about anal sex. I didn't learn about oral sex. I learned about anything. I'm like, this is how babies are made, and this is it. I mean, I see, if you're in the high school and you're getting older, where you want to, there could be electives exploring human sexuality, where you're like, you preach tolerance, and you preach that, you teach that, this stuff happens and people do that, but it's like, you know, that's it to kind of help those kids who are kind of struggling with that. But now listening to people talk about how, I have a trans son and my cousin is a trans son and everybody's got trans kids, that are in this fucking insanity. And yeah, I don't know, man. It's like, it's like the pendulum swinging the other way.
It became a we talked about victimhood, right? And it became this whole victim society where it was like, how much of a victim can I be? Because that's what's cool. Being a victim's cool. And the more of a victim I can be, the cooler I can be. It's weird.
Yeah. Right. And but it was like, it's all, again, it's like this badge of honor for just it's like getting this this victim status, right? So
and then you talk about you can put your tinfoil hat on if you want for this, but this is just true. But you talk about the systematic disintegration of our social values being like a key element of a leftist takeover.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, it's part of the communist playbook.
Well, they've been working on this. I mean, you saw Bezmenov. He gave in the 80s, he gave an interview. I mean, Yuri Bezmenov.
He breaks it down step by step by step.
And exactly what's fucking happening.
And the longer you can stay in like a couple different phases, the better it's going to be in the long run.
Yeah.
And we've been in those phases for a long time. So.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think hopefully we're breaking it. But again, what's happening now, this is like a 12, 15-year, 20-year process to unravel everything. Yeah, I'm just trying to be very generous at this, And
the current phase that we've been in has been probably 25 years.
Yeah, I would say it started like Kennedy, is when it kind of
for sure, right?
Right? You're like, the CIA fucking clipped him, and everybody's like, yeah, but then you're like, think about that. Our government, our fucking shadow government, killed the fucking guy, killed the president, sitting president, and now you think we got worse or better at that?
Yeah.
Right. I'm like, I was like, Jesus Christ, man. And we've been fighting perpetual wars forever. I'm surprised Trump isn't fucking dead already. I mean, they tried killing him. I mean, we still, like we said before, we still don't know about, what happened in the fucking dude in Pennsylvania. Right. I mean, he was scrubbed, like legit scrubbed, gone. We don't even know what was in his system or, his eye. It was a lone wolf. Yeah, okay, yeah, Oswald was a lone wolf. I go, it's so easy to find an Oswald now. All you got to do is like, hey, man, look at social media. And all you got to do is somebody like, hey, man, been reading what you're saying. I like what you're saying. I want you to come down to Bragg for some special training. Like, yeah. The dude that was on the golf course. What happened to him?
Yep.
What's his story? He's in jail someplace. I mean, what do we? I don't understand. Right.
Yeah.
So, funny thing, if you look up about the tinfoil hat, the guy that actually did it, that happened to was a genius. The CIA actually put something in his head that was, it was like a microwave chip or something insane. I'm paraphrasing everything, but the reality is the guy was smart enough to know that if he put tinfoil on his head, they couldn't fucking, track him or find out where he was. So, and then they turned the tinfoil hat into something that you're crazy. And conspiracy theory came out with Kennedy, where it's like, oh, it's conspiracy theory. Yeah, that made it sound crazy. I mean, it's a fucking psyop.
Yeah.
And
then the movie Conspiracy Theory came out with Mel Gibson.
Yes, with Mel Gibson. Right.
And it's kind of like, oh, ha, 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 but it's like, no, but that's probably actually what's happening.
What's happening? Yes. And, dude, the COVID report from fucking Congress was like, yeah, all the conspiracy theories are right. Mask don't work. Vaccine didn't spread fucking transmission. It didn't, stop it. It was like all this shit was like, it was made in a lab. It's like, and, we holding China accountable for anything? No. I mean, they should be handed a fucking huge bill. And
right? Are we in debt to them? Like, they should be giving us like $1 trillion.
Yeah, holy shit. Everything. Yeah, dude, you got to correct what just fucking happened over the last those fucking 3 years. But yeah, it's, it's interesting to see what's happening now. And I wanted to talk about the Jewish guy who shot, I don't know if anyone saw this. Florida man who's Jewish.
I mean, how crazy is this?
Right? Two Israeli tourists who he thought were Palestinians. His car was shot at 17 times. I mean, okay, yeah, I guess he had to, not in New Jersey. You fucking had to reload that shit. This poor son of a bitch said he had a mental break after he tried to shoot these two tourists. So, the Minotaur were local media reporters were reported as father and son were Israeli visitors unknown to the shooter. Both survived.
Just be driving by and just suddenly randomly shoot two people is bonkers.
Right. Where a Jewish American Jew didn't realize they were actually Jews from Israel. And yeah, but again, this is like, it's just an example of, how mental illness to me is finding its way to, to violence, right? I mean, this is, how, this is how people are dealing with insecurity now, right? They're not
right. Dealing with their emotions that they don't know how to process, right?
Right. Yeah. And and you're looking at the stuff where, and who knows, what medication these people, this guy's on. You'll never hear that. You'll never hear shit with like SSRIs and school shooters and the litany of medication that they're on when they commit the crime, or just the Trump, the guy who tried to assassinate, both guys who tried to assassinate Trump. What was going on? What was their toxicology report look like?
Yeah.
Right. So, and from a society perspective, we're dealing with, people who have been, who are dealing with stress, who are over medicated, and don't have a history of violence. All of a sudden, commit these atrocious acts. It's not like, this guy was, he's never been arrested before. It's not like he's going down, getting to the bar, You know, I mean, when we were growing up, the guy who would do crazy shit had a history of doing crazy shit. You know, I was like, oh yeah, I know fucking Billy. He was fucking a lunatic. Fucking, he'd go out and fucking, he rode his bike off the freaking roof. You know, he like did some like crazy shit. Yeah, that tracks. That's on brand. No, these people are like walking around, and all of a sudden they're just okay. Yeah, I think I'm gonna freaking do that. So all the gun laws and all the restrictions you have on background checks don't work on them because they don't have a criminal record.
Right.
You know,
it goes back to, is it mental illness? Probably. Is it, an extremism process? Are they being turned extremists through some method? Highly likely. Is it a combination of the two? Yeah, probably.
Yeah. I mean, you don't get hypnotized unless you've got a proclivity to be hypnotized.
Yeah.
Right. So it's the same shit. Like, you're like, I can send the message out. Let's say I'm selling waffles, right? Let's just say this is what I do. I sell waffles, and I can send that message out to everybody in the world, but the only people I'm going to get are people who are hungry for waffles, right? So, that's what, you're getting now. It's like the people are like, okay, someone's wired a certain way. They're, they're in a certain place in their life. It's like all like the perfect storm. Everything lines up. And then like, okay, today's the day. Fuck that guy. That guy looks too tan and not American. I'm fucking shooting it. Right? I'm like, yeah. I mean, but it seems to, again, I don't know, what this dude's political, I don't think, it was just clearly, yeah. So I don't know. But yeah, good times. So, this is like, shit. We're, this is the level, this is what's happening now. I mean, it used to be, violence was something. I mean, the good news at one point is like, when you're dealing with violence, it used to be, all right. I mean, it still exists where you're dealing with a street criminal who somebody used to deal with violence every day. But then on the other hand, you're dealing with people who are, doing these like deadly crimes and, taking a firearm, who really have like not a lot of training and are generally not, you're not dealing with, a tier one operator. So, chances are, you got a good shot against them from a defensive standpoint, because, again, you're not dealing with, a SEAL Team 6 sniper, right? So, there's that. But the problem is, it's like it does rear its head, and you don't know, you're going to be, I mean, dude, you look at that guy. I mean, did that guy look like he was going to fucking shoot anybody? No, he looked like he was going to do my taxes, so, there's that. And, somebody coming in and, somebody being able to gain access who doesn't look like someone who you would normally suspect. That's what you're dealing with. So,
yeah, I mean, it goes back to this whole like, you can do a lot to protect yourself, but sometimes there's no way to see it coming.
No, and that's why, you've got, it's funny, like, with, the both businesses, deal with people. It's like, well, I live in a nice neighborhood. I do this, I do that. I don't need that. I go, you don't see where this shit happens? I'm like, people kicking doors in our neighborhood. I'm like, that's where, people like, Stoneman Douglas is a nice community. Columbine is a nice community. I'm like, these places where these things happen are nice. So, to sit there and be like, oh, it's it's ignorant and racist to think that it only happens in the poor communities. We're like, just because you don't see a crackhead on the corner, when you're, coming home, all of a sudden it's like, they're stealing cars. If you're, like the MO is like, look, dude, I go, somebody, I had a home invasion across the street. I live in a very nice neighborhood, and imagine my disappointment that they didn't choose my house. I'm just saying, but I mean, it's a funny shit. It was funny, man. This is me and my meathead brother, but it was like it was like after a night of going out, um, and it was me, my buddy Mike, and my brother's buddy Ray, and my brother and I were sitting at a kitchen table, and someone came into our side door of our house. This is like suburbia America, and just kicked it. It was a steel. It's like my dad put in this steel door. So it's like this freaking like it was a regular door with a window, but when it was dark outside, I couldn't see what it was. Kicked it, and then my brother and I just like took off towards the door. We're like fighting each other to get out the door to go get this motherfucker. And it was funny because my buddy Mike looked at Ray and he's like, "Should we help him?" And Ray's funny. He's like, "Nah, fuck him. It's their house." That kind of shit. But that's like the mentality, that you grow up with, right? It's not like, "Oh my God." It's like, "You're fucking coming in. You're coming. Okay, we're coming. We're going." This is, this is like the mindset, right? When you're doing this stuff, I'm like, yeah, it's like, come in. I'm like, and I realize not a lot of people have that. But it's like, there's got to be some bit where you're like, and then when you start having kids and a family, that gets like escalated and it turns into something completely different. It turns from, okay, we're going to go kick some ass to like, I'm going to kill everybody that comes through that fucking door,
Yeah.
alleged, justifiably. So, and most people don't understand that. It was funny because former FBI director James Comey, he graduated from the same high school my son did. He told a story about how a guy was trying to break into his house and he and his brother hid in the bathroom. And I'm like, and you got into law enforcement for what? Right? I'm like, it was you and your brother. And it was one guy trying to get into your house and you hid. I don't know. That's a
how
choice.
old were they? It makes a difference.
They were in high school.
Oh.
Dude, yeah, they weren't children. They were like high school. They were definitely in high school and college. So they were that age. Yeah.
That's
no,
true.
they weren't 7. They weren't 7.
Yeah.
And plus, especially dude in high school, that's even more insane. I'm like, like testosterone's going. I'm, bet you like fucking 350 pounds, and I'm out of my head. I'm out of my mind. So no, that's not happening. Yeah, I probably
like
could
that
wind
too.
up. Yeah. I mean, that's just it. It's like fire ready aim.
Yeah. I remember my very first wrestling match in high school. I was like, finally, I can get out some aggression and just like go ham, And I gave the kid a concussion because I slammed him around so hard. They stopped the match. And my coach was like, "Hey, you got to tone it back." And I was like, "I can't even do it here."
Right. Right.
Like, where am I going to get this aggression out, man?
Right. Exactly. Tone it down. Well, the problem is your coach is trying to like get you to like use technique, conserve your energy, because he knows you're going to be done in like 20 seconds.
I lasted like a whole period.
A whole period. Yeah, right. It's like 1/3 of the way. Most people don't understand how tired that is.
Yeah.
When you're like, I can't walk, and you're like, oh, dude, you got like 4 more minutes of this shit.
I was always like, all right, nobody's going to third period, man. It's like pin or be pinned.
I love it. Hey, man, let's fucking go. I coach kids like that. I had kids on my team like that. I'm like, yeah, dude. I'm like, all right, that's how that went. I'm like, am I going to tell you not?
The few times I did, though, man, so gassed. I was so done.
Yeah. Again, the phrase that always comes into my head is fatigue makes cowards of us all.
Yeah.
right? It doesn't matter how tough you are, how strong you
Oh
are.
man, when I was doing jujitsu, like when I
Doesn't
first got out of the
matter.
military, and I was like, "Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
do some jujitsu with my kids." You know, first got them into it. I'm sitting there rolling, man. I get like 2 matches in, and I'm like, "Just pin, just submit me, dude. I'm dead.
Yeah, right. I'm done.
I have
I'm
nothing
done.
left
Daddy,
to give."
daddy done. Daddy done. It's all right. Yeah. And you get out there, you're like, holy shit. And it's new. You don't know, you think every position is a dangerous position, right? And you're overcompensating. You're until you know the game.
Oh yeah, burning way more energy than necessary.
Way more energy. People don't understand that. You're like, oh, it doesn't look that hard. I go, yeah, sure.
Or like hanging on to one, trying to get that one submission for like 2 minutes, and you're like, just let
right.
go.
Let go. What are you doing? You're done. That's why I would never want to do like free climbing. I mean, that to me is insane. If you're like, what's it called? Kevin Honnold. I don't know if you watch like free solo.
Oh, like yeah, that's
yeah, but so this dude
Yeah.
did Al Capitan like free solo. Like,
Yeah.
you want anxiety? I'm not a big heights guy at all, but he said something which was interesting. He's like, yeah, he goes, he's like, I only use like 70% of my energy, which makes perfect sense, because it's like, you're up there, and if you spend all your energy, you're fucked. That's it. You're falling to your death.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, you have to pace yourself.
Yeah, you can't and what if you're at 60? What if you're at 80? When do you go to 80? I'm like, what happened? So yeah, I mean, like he did, like that whole fucking mindset is just, holy crap. I mean, yeah, I just, yeah, those guys. I mean, I think everybody, like I was just watching like, bull riders getting thrown from horses, and they're like it looks like 20 feet in the air when these guys get thrown. I go, those guys are different. Those guys are different dudes too.
Yeah.
I'm like, you get on an animal. I've been like, dude, I've rolled with Olympians, professional fighters. Fine. I haven't strapped myself on a bull. That's like, those dudes, like, you think they give a shit about anything? I'm like, they don't care. I was like, it's just that they're just getting onto like 1,000-pound, hunk of muscle that just wants to like get rid of them.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So that's another thing I got into, is like watching bull riding too. Yeah. I don't know. I just watching like random shit with like tough dudes doing
You sound
stuff.
bored.
Right. Right. I really am. Oh shit. All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us. I think we got up to like 10 on our clock, but it's
Awesome.
probably more than that because I always get that. We should be good to go next week. Thank you, Josh, for joining us. And yeah, good to hear from you, George. And everybody, you can check out Train with Josh, links below, Train with Us, all that stuff there. I want to thank you for joining us. Until next time, everybody, train honestly.